asked me to present tonight. So I will say, I know probably as much as about half of you in here. If you know Meshtastic some, could you raise your hand just so I know? If you know Meshtastic 0, raise your hand. Perfect. So about 50-50. That's great. Tonight I'm hopefully gonna meet everybody where you're at. Not too deep, and it's not gonna be too long. The purpose of tonight is to play. So we are going to get into a really quick presentation to talk about what the heck it is. Then we're going to play for about 45 minutes. We'll get some devices set up. If you want to flash some firmware, we'll talk about why you might want to do that. We'll get that. So tonight, you hopefully will be leaving, we'll all be connected. We've loosely gotten connected kind of by happenstance over the last 3 or 4 months. Just by people buying the nodes and then finding each other online and then realizing, oh, VOA, I know VOA. Is that the same VOA? Yeah, it is. And so now we're going to get a little bit more, probably put a little more effort into building a network, because that actually is going to be really important to make it all work. All right, what the heck is it? LoRa Mesh Networking is off-grid text network, communication with LoRa technology. It's a mouthful. How many people here have heard of LoRa before? Okay, so a few of you. LoRa, I think it's a funny name, right? Because it's long-range radio, except these Meshtastic devices are only really built to go about 1.5 miles. They're not meant to go 50, 100 miles. So where does long range come from? It used to be low RAN. That was another implementation of this, and it was that we have the local area network, your wide area network, if you guys do any networking with, at home with your stuff, and some bright idea to let's call it long range area network. So low RAN came out of that long range network.
It's long range because compared to Wi-Fi.
Compared to Wi-Fi, exactly that. So because they were talking about networking, Wi-Fi was very short range. And so if I could go 1 mile with my IoT signal or my Wi-Fi signal, that seemed awesome. And so that's LoRa, long range radio. Impressive range. Now, up to 200 miles is theoretically possible. Right? Put one of these up in a plane, get line of sight, and you're not, and you're not over the horizon. Well, the horizon's about 200 miles, right? So I've seen them. I can get a 1 watt signal off an airplane at 1098 megahertz. It's not hard to move that kind of digital information over that distance. For us, it's challenging because we're land-based, so we'll talk about that. So up in the 915 megahertz band, that's an ISM band, so there's no licensing needed in that band up to 1 watt. And that's watt power out at the device, not at the antenna. And it is text only because it's a very limited bandwidth. So we're not talking about voice, we're not talking about video, we're talking about slow data rate, buried way down in the SNR signal, like 120, 130, way down, like to the point that I can't see it on my on the waterfall as I'm receiving the signal on my device, right? So if you have any of those fancy waterfall displays, you know what I'm talking about. So it's perfect for text, GPS, and IoT. IoT is a big one. It's two-way. You don't just hear from your devices. You can talk to them and tell them to do stuff, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit. Okay, so that's LoRa. That's the underlying radio technology. And I am going fast. If you want questions and answers, we'll have time later. Mesh networking. What is mesh networking? This is point to point to point to point to point, not point to repeater to point, right? It's not hub and spokes. It's everybody talks to everybody else. Everybody is a repeater. Every device in the network repeats to every other device. There's an algorithm for that works, so it's not chaos, for all of you that are thinking that sounds like chaos. There's ways that the device knows when to transmit and not transmit. But it's completely decentralized. There's no main server, there's no main hub. You get on, you get off when you want. You can set up your own channels. You don't even have to be on the public network that you all have seen so far. You can create your own networks. Every node relays, the messages hop between those nodes, and hopefully there's no single point of failure. Although in New Hampshire today, there are a couple single points of failure. We'll talk about that. I'm going to jump out of my presentation because I just want to show you very quickly. I think this helps kind of tell the story of what a mesh network does. So in the middle of the screen, you have the originating node. I built this little simulator. And what's happening here is these nodes are making decisions about when to transmit. The green one got the go-ahead. The pink ones were waiting. Now we have another pink one waiting here because there's a node probably further away that wanted to transmit first. Eventually, all the nodes try to connect to all the other nodes in the system. And again, we'll talk a little bit about, if we have time, the algorithm. But eventually, you find your path. This message wanted to get to here. Maybe it was a direct message. It found its path through here, but everyone else wants to get that as well because we don't know what the message is. The device has to decide. So we want everybody on this to get it. Now, here in New Hampshire, we've got mountains, which block radio signal, which the simulation takes into account. And in this case, 3 hops left this whole part of the grid out. We could rerun the simulation, put it at 5 hops, and I do wish it went a little faster, but Let me load a new map with 6 hops, and we'll see if we get there. They're coming in from the top this time. And as that runs, again, I'll explain kind of what's happening in the Meshtastic algorithm, because I actually think this is kind of cool. So when the first node broadcasts, and obviously this is happening at light speed, it doesn't happen this slowly. It slowed the simulation way down, introduced a lot of things that aren't true because it's so slow. But what's happening is when this node broadcasts, signal goes out to all these nodes, the ones that are in range and that hear it. On the device looks at the signal to noise ratio of the signal. If the signal to noise ratio is terrible, that device immediately broadcasts. Why? Because it's likely the furthest away from the node that sent it. So SNR is the only way that the device can know, essentially, how far am I away from the sender. And the reason we want the furthest one away is we want these messages to go as far as they can. The reason you send it to the furthest one away is if you send it to the nearby ones, as soon as they transmit, all of the other nodes that can hear that transmitter stop transmitting because they hear it, right? So the radios listen before they transmit. If they don't hear anything or they don't hear the message that they're trying to repeat, then they'll take their turn. So it's actually a really cool algorithm. It's called flood algorithm. And you can kind of see when you watch the simulation over and over again, it kind of floods out across the net. There is one problem with this, is that when it gets complex, the algorithm can bog down. We won't get into the issues with that, but you'll read about some of that online. Like when they had DEF CON out in Las Vegas, and they had 150 of these 200 guys show up with Meshtastic devices, it worked, but they had to prepare to make it work. They couldn't just show up. It would have, all those hops would have just kind of lost its way. And they're working on the algorithm to continue to make it better. The latest version has a new way to work around that. Okay. It's an open source project. Nobody owns this. I don't work for Meshtastic. I have no financial interest in it. Nobody does. It's just a bunch of people that are putting the software there. So you can, if you want to develop with them, they'll be more than happy. If you write software for the web, they've got web interfaces they need help with. If you write hardware, RF software, I'm sure they can help, or algorithmic too. It's hardware and an app. All right, let's look at the hardware. Show and tell time. This is my little Meshtastic. This is my PVC pipe. This is my little Meshtastic device. I stick this in the back of my truck when I'm driving down the road. I have a little holder that holds it in the bed. They're small and compact. You see them, people have them different sizes and shapes. They come in a lot of different varieties. And you pair them with an app on your phone, right? So Android or iPhone. And the app's great, right? It's how you communicate through Bluetooth to this, and this uses LoRa to then communicate with the rest of the world. It can also work at home over HTTP, so you don't have to have the phone. You can use some computer-based apps, or it works over a serial connection. If you're like me, I've got it hooked up to Raspberry Pis and a whole bunch of stuff so that I can build programming on top of it. We've talked about the key features being two-way texting, location sharing, and all you ham radio operators, encryption. I know you guys don't care about that because you can't do it. But you can, because you can do encrypted messaging on these devices because it is not under a ham radio license. Where does ham radio fit in? Maybe the best way to put it is kind of digital backchannel. It's an augmentation. I think if you think about how this plugs in directly to the ham hobby of radio, I have seen guys do RF monitoring. I've seen guys monitor they use it to monitor their repeaters because the repeater goes down, you can't talk to your equipment. So they use that for backhaul to talk to the equipment. They use it for IoT actions and emergency messaging. And this is an interesting thing. You think, well, emergency messaging to who? We've already got areas and networks and things like that. What about your extended families and your friends in your neighborhoods? These devices are about $30. You can put these in all of those folks' houses. And then during an emergency, when text messaging stops working 8 hours after the lights go out, these keep working, right? You've got a generator running, you have your little local neighborhood mesh set up. You can keep talking until those batteries run out. And you don't need the cell phone network to do any of that. Hardware options, you can go ready-made, which is what this is. So I bought this device just like this, came in the mail ready to go, I turned it on and lit up and worked. About $30 to $70. This one is closer to 70 because it's got GPS built in. DIY builds are a ton of fun. Jay, where's Jay? We got anybody met online, and we'll talk about. Hey, Jay. Jay's got some devices I know he brought. He's been building them. We met on Discord, and we've been trying to put together some solar nodes to hide in places. And then obviously custom cases is fun, and you'll see some of those around. All right, big one, improving range. I don't need to go into this too much with you guys. You know how to get good range. It's line of sight. I'll say it, line of sight. What did I say? Line of sight. You gotta say line of sight. The signals do bounce around. They do reflect in the city. And sometimes they can reflect well in the city. 9 megahertz can bounce nicely. I sit on a hill way up in Ware. I need hills. I need some folks to get up on hills. And so placement matters. And fixed nodes are great. So they're portable devices, but we can build base stations. And we can build solar base stations easily because they're low power devices. Very low power devices. They're meant to be run for solar for days, dark days. So you put a couple of the, I forget, 18 whatever, 1835, whatever.
18650s.
Yeah, those guys. Put a couple of those in a box to give you a week of battery life in a solar panel, and that thing will run all the time somewhere up on Unkanunik or Joe Hill or one of these great elevation places. Real world applications, you could use these event communication. So these were big at like Coachella, DEF CON, areas where people want to communicate with each other, and either the text messaging is kind of loosey-goosey, or they just want to be on their own private network and play. The fun part is you see where everybody is because of GPS. So these are great for hiking events. You got a large group, you want to see where everybody is, you can look right at your device and see where everybody is on the map. And you can set the mode to update that GPS very, very quickly. Or you can set it to update every 3 hours. So if you're doing a hiking event, you want to make it quick, you don't want people to follow you around town, you can set it or just turn it off.
For example, Hamfest.
Yes.
Hamfest is very powerful.
Yeah. Experimentation, obviously, so weather sensors, APRS integration, we're going to play with that. That's another reason I got back into ham was how those two systems can work together, the text messaging. Emergency prep, grid down solid talked about that. And outdoor adventures, this one I like. I think there's going to be some real imagination around this one on the fun side of things. In fact, I thought last night, I heard you guys talking about fox hunts. This would be a really fun way. Do you guys remember geocaching?
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine with these little devices. Imagine setting them with, you can build an error into it, so it's like only 0.9 kilometers. You can just bring people to an area with the device. I can think of some really fun capture the flag events where the device itself is the flag. And so you can just play over time. Anyway, I won't go into all that, but I think there's going to be lots of places for people to plug in. It doesn't necessarily have to be a real tight ham integration for it to be valuable for us. I think coming up with applications is going to be part of the fun here. All right, so we're about wrapping up on this part of it. We want to get into the playtime. I went ahead and just set up nhmesh.com as just a place to put information. I have nothing in that. There's money selling ads on it. It's just a place to put resources. So I just got it up this week, so you'll see it's there. We announced the meeting. I put that simulator on there. Something else that's going to go up is this can be fun to look at. If you use MeshSense, this is kind of redundant, but I built a little dashboard so we can see us. It's actually live data right now, so I can see the last packet I got was at 748, 749 right now. 28 nodes online is probably all of us here, because that's all I can hear. And then that's where most of you were earlier in the day, because maybe your GPS positions didn't end up. So VOA, I see you there. STJ, you're on here. I live up here, so that's me up in Ware, and some other of us. And these are the messages that we've been kicking around here in the room. That's all on the website and additional resources. So I'm going to put up links to different applications, different things you can do with it, how it works, so that it's a place that we can land. And then I'm really encourage you, send me stuff through the email there. I'll put up a form so we can collect your stuff too, because I don't have a monopoly on this. And I would love to learn more myself. So what are we going to do next? Tinker time. All right. First thing we're going to do is take you through a very quick walkthrough of how to set up your device on what will be sort of our network from tonight. And so that we're all on a separate non-public network, which does work better. Jay and I proved this. We have not been able to connect either through direct message or public messaging on the public channels. As soon as I set up the secondary channel, he and I started exchanging messages. That's interesting. I don't know why that is, but it does. It works. So we'll set that up tonight for all of us. If any of you want to flash your firmware, you may not know what that means, but there are new versions to the software that run the device. There is an alpha version that just came out. It's a big jump. It's the 2.6 version. You have to type in a little funny code on your device on the flash and make it work. But essentially, they're fixing some of the algorithm, and they fix some Bluetooth stuff. So if you'd like that flash tonight, we can help you flash that on there quickly. It's an alpha release, but honestly, it's been dead stable for me, so I'm not worried too much about it.
You don't have to do the Konami code anymore.
Oh, good. The down, button, up, left, right, A, B, right? That was the code. So here we go. All right, grab your devices. We're going to do this walkthrough as a group. Then we're going to break out into tables, and I'm gonna have the experts, that is anybody here that knows what you're doing, you're gonna raise your
Or
hand.
someone.
Or if you have a device that even turns on, you raise your hand so that people that don't know can pair up with you. That'd be good groupings. And then Eric, I forgot your name, Todd, WTSJ are gonna walk around. Jay will be walking around. We can help answer questions, look at your devices, chat, and then we're gonna come back together at the end for a Q&A. Hopefully, as we're meeting and as we're tinkering, a lot of questions are gonna come up. I'm gonna try to be writing those down so that as a group, we can kind of hit the big ones at the end. All right, so that give you a sense of where we're going? Okay, so power on and connect your device. You've got it, most of you are there. Most of you will already be, at this point, you will already have configured your region because you have to do that to even get the app to turn good to get past the startup screen. You just, when you guys first turn your devices on, it'll ask you to pick a country. Just pick the US. That's because you're setting the device to 915. If you set it to Europe, you'll be on 868, and there's another region where you'll be in the 400s. Those are in the device, so be careful to set that. And this is the only work we have to do. Everything else just should work. The public channel should just work on your device. But you can set up what's called a secondary channel. So if you find the channel section in your app, and we can help you find that if it's not obvious, you can add a channel. When you add that channel, choose it to be a secondary channel. And these are the two important settings. The name, which is important, because it is capital, case sensitive, so capital NHM mesh, NHM mesh. Yeah. And then you have that should say 1 byte, not 1 bit.
So it's capital N, capital H, capital M,
Yes.
ESH.
And interestingly enough, what's happening there is it runs an algorithm on the name to figure out some of the frequency stuff with the radio, so the names do matter. And then the key, which isn't really a key because it's only 1 byte, and anybody can probably guess it. NA equals. Capital A equals. That's the key.
And what?
NA. I tried to do NH, but that's not a valid 1 byte key for some reason. So it changed it to NA. So it's NA. If you haven't already done it, you probably have. You can set your device name. And this is something here, we're all ham guys. If you want to figure out, if you want to add the last 3 of your call sign somewhere, either in your long name or it probably won't fit in your short name because that's only 4 characters. The 4 characters are what show up on the map. The long name is what it shows up in some other places. But it can be helpful so we know who the heck you are. Having said that, one of the things I hope to set up on the website for us is a way that we can register our names so that we know call signs to devices, because I think that'd be great for the fan club. We don't have to give our real names, but it would be nice to have our call signs. But the rest of the world doesn't know how to figure that out. And then we're going to test it out. So, any big questions before we break out and play with these for a while and kind of come up with some questions and come back together? Anything that I went too quickly through?
I just want to point out my friend Tyler over here has the garden lamp sample there. He brought show and tell.
Oh, nice. Okay, this is great. All right, this is sweet.
You can pull it open if you want.
Oh, this is awesome. All right. This is a stealth node. This is what we need more of. I've imagined these as garden gnomes. These lights are perfect. How can we get mesh devices all over the place without anybody knowing? This might be one way to do it.
Harbor Freight, Walmart.
That's a $10 Harbor Freight light that gives you the
Free
solar,
battery.
1 battery, which gives you through 2 days. And I
Does the light
just soldered in the rack.
Does the light still work?
Yeah, the light still works, but I don't have it on because I would drain the battery every night.
You put a proximity sensor. So that when someone gets near it, it comes on, they don't know. Yeah.
I have a couple drilled inside of the log.
This one was such an aha one for me because there's this spot on Dunbar on Route 13 where the old country club used to be. There's an airstrip up there. It is a perfect spot to put a note. Or we just opened a new neighborhood there, and they have one of those mailbox places where they have the roof. I thought, I'll just stick a light on it. Everybody will love the lights. There's no light there now. I'll get my note. Everybody will be happy.
Now, obviously, there's no external antenna, so it's, but I might.
I didn't know.
On top, either the VA in Manchester has that water tower, if we could somehow get one up on top of there, or the Dairyfield Park, there's that
Yes.
lookout tower up
Yes.
there that you can climb up once a year. We could like smack a magnetic field up there or something, that would be great.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of gathering some of that stuff. If you guys got ideas or you got locations you might want to set up, come see me. I just get your name and call sign and a few other things, and we can basically start to tabulate that as well as feed it into Pete's website, so we have a way to kind of like start to build that network of hidden nodes.
There's some really cool
As
tools.
far as, I mean, Massachusetts, I don't know if you guys have tacked into Treasure Valley, like, it's backed up for emergency comms. They have permission to go up on the towers and everything else. They're way ahead of the curve.
So you're saying we should talk to some of the Aries people around
If
here?
only there were some emergency comms people we could talk to.
So I'll piggyback on that one, because these are the guys that I found these. It's a PVEC group, Pioneer Valley Emergency Coalition. And they own a number of routers, even this VHRS one up here, which is critical. I sometimes can hit these guys directly from my hill. I can't hit Manchester most of the time. Sometimes I can hit these from my hill. And it's just because I've got line of sight through the valleys there. And so that's what I want to mention, is there's a cool tool, which I'll put on the website, where you can actually plug in where you think you want to put a node. And you can plug in all the statistics. So the dB of your radio, height above ground. You can even say like how high are the trees from there, like ground clutter. And then it will actually show you what your likely propagation will be from there. And there have been some spots where I thought were perfect, and they were crap, because I just didn't understand the topography enough to know that I was going to get, blocked. So I'll put that tool on the website as well, but that'll be great for us figuring out where to put these. And this site, this is called MeshSense. They have, they built a cool little monitoring tool, and you can upload information to it, then they build this whole kind of national map, although it's not all of this.
Can I ask a question? So if I send a message to someone directly and it gets into it, someone picks it up, and then they're not where they need to be, or will they get it, or does it keep going until it gets to where it's going, or does it stop? Because sometimes I get this.
They stop. So the hops, and this is an issue, you tell that you can program in the radio, and the default is 3, that once it takes 3 hops, and the first hop doesn't count, I don't know why, but it doesn't.
First hop free.
The first hop's free, and then you start counting, it's decrements, and once it gets to the end, it's
So if
on
it
out
doesn't-
hops, it stops.
so-
So distance-wise, it won't go any further. And what you're asking, I think, is 2 questions. What happens if my mobile device gets the message? Will I get it when I open the device? If the device got the message, yes.
Meaning
But it
the
won't.
this
Yes.
right.
So, but what it won't do is it won't deliver a message later in the day once it connects.
Okay.
That message gets lost to the ether. There is a store and forward app. There aren't enough of us using it yet. You have to have an ESP32 device. It has to have onboard memory, and those can store messages.
So how do you know if they're? I mean, I look at my app and like now with everyone here, it's like got 1,000. I mean, it's huge. How do I know who is reachable or who might be reachable? Like, what am I looking for when I hit? If I go on the app and I hit like nodes, right?
Click their name and hit trace route.
So just hit like anyone and then trace route.
And I generally look for last seen. If it's any longer than 30 minutes, they're gone.
So maybe we should get people
Yep.
set up first, and then we can start kind of getting into the weeds of some of that
Yeah,
stuff.
let's do that.
makes sense.
So let's break up into some tables. If you're a quote expert, in other words, you played with the device for a little while, could you put your hand up so people can gather around you? If you have a device, so we got Jay in the back.
If you
He's
got a
some
brand new
devices to
device,
show
you've never
off.
set it up, come up this way, and we'll make sure we plug you in with
We
somebody.
can hook you up in the front. And if you have any great questions that come out of your group, make sure to write them down. We will have a good group of them in like 25 minutes.
So has anybody not downloaded like the Meshtastic app off their phone yet? Okay, I'll assume no. Everybody's done it.
Who are you? At 58 dB is what I'm on here. But
And 58 dB?
no, just 58.
58 dB.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
Well, where and when?
Yeah.
Bridge Cafe on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So it's 10 a.m. on Sunday. Bridge Street, Elm Street. It's on the southeast corner of that intersection, basically. It's a lovely restaurant. It's got kind of coffee shop feel, very laid back, cheerful atmosphere, really good food.
Roughly what time?
10 a.m.
10 a.m., okay.
Every Sunday. Yeah.
That's great. I had seen some of those messages a couple months ago. You guys doing
Come on,
meetups.
join.
And we're all in this together. There are, probably see other mesh groups. Let them know about ours. Let them know about NH Mesh. Let them know that we're not trying to park out a domain and like mark out territory. We're not. We're just trying to get resources up to get this thing off the ground. So let that whole group know. That's awesome.
I created a resource on YouTube, a channel called Meshtastic YouTubes, and I think it's YouTube without a space. And there's 276 YouTube videos on there now.
Nice.
So you can scroll through them. Basically, every time I see another YouTube that talks about how to do Meshtastic, I just save it there. So they're not in any order, but I culled them out of, several months worth of searching.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Meshtastic space YouTubes.
I will put that on the website too, on the resources page.
And I can post that on your
Yes,
website.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
It's also Tuesday nights, it's Murphy's Tap Room, right across from the SNU. It's Meshtastic / Libertarian, so you can, kind of,
Play the sides.
Pork mesh hang out there?
yeah, just mesh and mesh.
What's the name of the cafe again?
It's Murphy's Tap Room in Manchester. And it's like diagonally across from the SNU.
Yeah. On Elm Street.
One of the things I'll set up, I hope soon, once we get, if I can get connected, once I get connected more reliably, and so maybe I'll have somebody else do this actually, is to set up a box. One of the things you can do on these networks is you can have if you guys remember the old BBSs from 1200 baud days, anybody? Anybody 1200 baud BBSs? That's software.
Packet BBS.
There you go. There's packet BBS too, right? So BBSs are still a thing. And I want to I've got one up and running at my house on the Raspberry Pi ready to launch on the website. And it's great for automated messaging. So announcing things like meetups and meetings. It all happens in direct messages, so it doesn't flood the public channel. But you can use it to do, to get reports back. I've got it so if you type in the Sun, you'll get a full HF report back about what's going on. Some stupid games, but there's also, just seeing who else is on the mesh. You can type in sitrep, it'll tell you the last 3 people that checked in. There's some fun stuff that we can do over text messaging, but sort of at the next level. So that hopefully will be coming to another place to put announcements and do stuff like that. So more questions? Anything anybody stuck on?
More of just kind of like a feature that I like to see, or maybe I'm not finding it, because I play in both worlds, the ham radio world and then the encrypted world. And obviously I can't get them to mesh without having a black Suburban roll up to my house. So,
Will never happen.
Am I missing something with that, or is that possible? Or as soon as I set that device, it's either a licensed device or an ISM device?
As I understand, yeah, because they turn off the encryption once you call it a licensed device.
So don't call it a license.
Yeah, like right now, I leave it on the encryption side, so that's why you don't see my call sign in there.
It's an interesting. I won't get into it here. I think people are over-interpreting the law on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think if like a key like ours published on a website, I think covers the same rule that the other ones do, which is if you put up encryption code, you have to put the code to decrypt it.
Mm-hmm.
Like WinLink is encrypted. You
Yeah.
can't read that unless you have the software to decrypt it. It's not technically decrypted because there's not a private key that somebody holds. I think Meshtastic is the same. I think people are over-interpreting. It's more of a legal discussion.
Wouldn't it be, if you did node to node though, like a direct message, wouldn't that encrypt with it would encrypt with a private key that you wouldn't be published?
Correct, and so you have to not do the DD, it's like the DM stuff.
But it's
I wonder if
going,
there's not
over
that.
an ISM frequency though, it's not going over ham frequency.
Yeah, it's not ham frequency.
So it's not, wouldn't matter.
But if you put your license, if you attach your license to the device,
You can go over the ISM power.
it increases the
Right, so you can go, and then you're no longer under ISM.
Oh, I see, got you. So, all right, so your license gives you more boost, but then you have to play the encryption game.
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
So there may be some ways for stuff that we just don't need encrypted, for emergency messaging, where we can set up a ham backhaul to connect multiple small networks together, like MQTT, which I didn't talk about tonight because most ham guys don't want to play with it because it's internet. And that's fine. But that was the way that they were connecting a network over here that couldn't reach a network over here. They were using the internet to backhaul. The guys in the Pioneer Valley network, are actually using their own microwave backhaul link. They've got one on Crotched, one on Unk, one up on Gunstock. That's private. That's a private network. Do whatever they want on that. And so they're using that for the backhaul. for their mesh network. And that also works when the grid goes down, because they have their own generators and their own repeaters, and and they are using MQTT, but it's not on the public internet. It's a completely private internet. Version 2.6 of the app is opening up, I see your hand, I'll get you, sorry. Is opening up the ability to connect in your house with LAN. I think they're also gonna open up some non-MQTT networking so that you can do some backhaul over a private network like that. That will be really exciting, because that's when like the PVEC guys really could leverage their microwave network, which would be cool. I'd love to get hooked into that. Yes.
Do you know of any place to get documentation about how to use these through the included keyboard and touchscreen?
Anyone?
Not through the app?
Does anyone have or know about documentation?
Do you have the 2.6?
I don't know what's on here. It came with Meshtastic on it.
Okay, there's a new firmware that was just released like, what, a week ago?
Yeah.
It's 2.6. If you go to the Meshtastic web flasher, you have to, for that device, you have to hold in the center button and then turn it on. It'll go black, no screen. Plug it in and you'll be able to flash it with the new modern firmware. It's much easier to use.
Yeah, and I can help you flash that before you leave.
Yeah.
So just come up at the end. I just flashed a couple of those, and they all have the new UI. It's a little jealous because that's like a full graphical user interface now.
Yeah,
It's like,
much nicer.
Looks like a BlackBerry device, a little keyboard, and it's got map, touchscreen. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool little device.
So clarification as far as my understanding, like different channels. So right now, I'm just kind of open, long fast. I'm paying attention, to chatter that's going on. But my understanding is that's kind of open, but then I have a separate channel. So I can create separate channels where it's maybe my buddies, and then a separate one that's just my immediate family, where these are encrypted, but the other one isn't. So there's an option of encryption based on each channel.
Each channel will have its own key. So somebody from channel 1 can't read channel 2's messages.
Yeah.
So that's how you can use. You have 9 slots in your device, and exactly like you said,
Yep.
sort of work your way from public all the way down to just your best friend. You have that's the way I imagine it working here.
Yep.
We set up basically a non-key, right? That key's guessable, and
Yeah.
if we want to do, let's say, a GSRA club, where it was just actual club members that had membership, we could do a full key and lock that channel down. And then you could go further. You could have a committee on the GSRA, only that committee.
Now, a popular thing that's happening a lot more if you're in the YouTube universe and whatnot, you're seeing a lot of like the bigger hams, the bigger YouTube hams, and those specific channels, when they go to things like Hamcation, they go to Hamvention, all of those things, they are basically publicizing, via the QR code, the channels that they're all going to be on. And actually, they've really proved it out a bit when they went to Hamcation this year, because there was a lot more, standalone repeater nodes. They were basically building out the network very intelligently and designing it so, they ran through the same problems that a lot of the bigger crews ran through. It's like, flooding of the network and stuff like that. So they learned from their lessons, and so they're starting to share that with the rest of the folks. So as you start to go to these, Hamfests and stuff like that, bring your Meshtastic node with you, because more than likely you'll probably start to see people with QR codes and say, hey, scan this, and you'll be part of the, the local, channel that might be going on in that situation, or even scheduling it beforehand. We'll probably do that a lot in our clubs here as well, when HamX and stuff like that come out.
And when you join a private channel, any device that's not on that channel is still repeating your messages out. So you're still taking advantage of the full mesh
That's what's brilliant
by
about it.
being on a private channel. Yeah. I didn't understand that at first. I thought, if I have a private channel, how am I talking to people but all of the devices will still repeat your messages. They just can't read them.
And the QR code is important for private ones because the keys are going to be non-trivial like that, and that's what.
Yeah, you need to figure out all those little letters.
Especially with this.
There's also a URL you can go to, which I'll have to figure out how to do that. And that you can, I can put that up on the website. You can click it with your device and it would just done it. Question.
More of a sort of a comment, but hopefully I'll save somebody some frustration that I went through. If you change, so in the app, the channel 0 is called primary channel. If you change the name of that, it will change the frequency of the radio.
That's right.
And channels don't think of them as RF frequency, think of them as encryption keys. And so if you change the name of a primary channel, basically you're going to stop hearing everybody because right now we're all on the same frequency. But as soon as you change that, then your radio jumps to some completely random frequency that nobody else in the world, not nobody else in the world, but nobody in the region is going to be using.
Right. Within the band that we have, there's 120 slots, frequency slots. And the slot gets picked based on the name of the channel. There's some algorithm that figures it out. So like if you change it from primary or from long fast, it can be primary, long fast, or blank. Any of those things. If it's anything other than that, that channel will go dead for you because you'll be on a different frequency. We're on 906.875 if you're looking for it on your waterfall. Public channel is on 906.875. I haven't checked where we are on NH Mesh. But it's interesting. The other thing, which you'll see, there are lots of settings in the LoRa radio. So if you go into the LoRa radio setting on this, first of all, don't change anything on that page, except the number of hops. Your device will be defaulted to 3 hops. My experience says that is woefully inadequate in New Hampshire right now. There will come a day when we will beg you to come off of 5 and go back to 3. We are not there yet. So if you could set it to 5 or 6, further out you are, like if you're in the boonies, set it to 6. 7's a bit much. If you're in the boonies, put it on 6. 7's probably fine, but if you put it on 7, people in Boston are going to be picking up your stuff. It will get down there and they just like, why? It annoys them. It wouldn't annoy me. Like eventually it's just too much noise. So if you could set it to 5 or 6, that will help folks like myself, Ralph, that are on the edge, but have good reception, get those last hops. We're not in a reception deficit. We're in a hop deficit. We're just not making that last hop. And for myself, I need an extra hop to put the stuff on the website because I got another radio that listens and it needs another hop just to get from my roof to my computer. So there's a little bit of a personal thing there too. But yeah, 6 hops would be great. 5 or 6 hops. If you're dead in Manchester, like right in the middle of the city, definitely on the 5 side, maybe 4, because it could get a little busy in Manchester.
Isn't there something to the protocol, like at home, it'll ignore, if it sees a node that's so close, it knows it's yours, it ignores it?
It won't.
Doesn't
If
count
you
as
have
on?
multiple, that's a great point. If you have, I almost forgot. If you have multiple devices at home, you only want one device to be client. You want all the other devices to be client mute. That does not mean that that device is muted. It simply means that that device will not participate in repeating packets. So the theory is, put your best radio highest up on your roof that you can, make that one client. Make all the other ones client mute. That way when any of your device, when you got in your pocket or on your desk or in your shack, the first repeat is going to come from your roof now. It won't come from one of your ones that are buried in a drawer somewhere and you lose that hop. You want that first hop to come out of your roof and start going out.
Good to know.
You have it on client mute, and then you take that portable radio out. Do you want to switch that to client? then?
You don't need to. It just won't participate in repeating packets. So you're just not sharing the load, as it were.
Okay.
But you will still get messages and you can still send messages.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if your device is this small, it should be on client mute, basically, because it's just so portable and, really meant for like.
Yeah, I keep my base on client and the rest of them on.
On the channels, I've seen something where they say, like the first channel, where you've got like long fast, and then the first channel, they recommend an admin, and then.
That might be older firmware.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know they're getting away from that. The
Okay.
admin channel used to be, so you got a device up a tree on a mountain somewhere.
Yeah.
How the heck am I going to admin that device?
Yeah.
You technically should be able to do it over the network. They
Should.
changed that twice now on how that works, and it still doesn't work.
Okay.
So if you put a device up a tree, you're going to be going to get that device.
Peter, when should you, I'm sorry.
What's the low-level protocol to use for this? Is it like the mesh, like 802, 15.4, or do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know the algorithm is proprietary because they've been developing it, but I don't know if it's based on any specifics. I'm sure it is, but
Yeah.
they're probably starting to deviate from that. I know with the DM messages, they're putting in their own.
Yeah, I know Microchip has like a meaty chip. I'm just wondering if that, like, the whole thing's built on that. So-
Oh no! But does anybody know the chip? It is the S130. There's a very specific chip that's used on all the devices.
All right.
There's 2 versions of it. One's a little higher power, and that's really becoming the default one that everybody's using. It's higher power and lower battery killing.
So Peter, when, I don't know if you know the answer to this. You mentioned putting one up high and setting it to client. When should you use router and repeater?
If you're on the mountains.
Never. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe never. I think they might get rid of it. I've played with router and repeater multiple occasions. but there's so many dang variables. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know that it was any better. If you're in repeater mode, you're not going to send out any information about your device, so you'll disappear. So no one can see where you are or know you're there, so they can't talk to you. In repeater mode, it's not going to send messages to your device, so you're not on the net with that one, and people may try to message that device, not knowing it's a repeater. So it's kind of that's a weird one, but that does just straight repeat. Doesn't use the device power at all. And they really were doing that for power usage. They're trying to save that battery life on those solar nodes. But I think they're finding it's causing more issues than they were solving with the power problem. For that, Dave.
With the admin channel, you don't want to use a separate admin channel. It's actually a security risk. I can remote admin all of my units by using the public channel from my main client unit into all of my client units. And as long as they're connected, I can actually remote admin them all through the main client. So don't use that admin channel itself. There's actually a really good from the comms channel. He actually shows you how to do it. I tried doing it with the older way, and it's very clunky. And the correct way to do it is it is a little slow because of the limited amount of data that we can send. But I had a unit 2 hops away, and I was remote adminning that unit from about 5 miles away.
So it does work. I've never gotten it to work. You got it to work. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can show you working.
Very cool.
But the best way to show it actually being secure is from the comms channel, because he shows you the vulnerabilities on it.
Awesome. Cool.
I'm trying to think of any more gotchas that I've learned in the brief period that I've banged my head against the wall with this thing.
Where do you find how many to put the hops on the app?
Oh, that's in the LoRa
settings.
radio setting. At least on the Apple device, it's in radio configuration, LoRa. And I don't know, on Android, I'm not sure.
Oh, there it is.
It's on the Android door.
Peter, maybe just mention that if you know any Python programming, every command, every feature is available through your computer through Python.
Yeah, I've actually found that to be the most reliable way. I do it through the client or just through the command line.
Yeah.
The apps can be a little wonky sometimes. That's a good one. Don't be afraid to reset these when they get weird on you, and they will get weird, especially when you do multiple setting changes. Like if you change the name and then you change, there's a million things you can change there. It resets every time you change something. I've had the radios not brick, but I've had them kind of freeze up. Only once I've had to reflash when I've just done too many setting changes. So just be aware of that. And the other one, which is a gotcha, which we just encountered in the room, is when you change information about your account, like so if you change your name, or if you change the position settings, like you want to show it or you want to hide it, that's going to take 1 to 3 hours to propagate through the network. And the reason that is because to save space to save bandwidth, they only transmit information about your node, so the name of your node, the identification, the keys that it has in it, once an hour, I think is the default, or once every 3 hours is the default. I have mine set to 1 hour. You can set it to once an hour to speed that up. But there may be a period of time where you can't communicate with someone you used to be able to communicate with because you may have changed your keys. So if you reset the firmware and then reset up channels, all your keys are going to rotate. There are ways to save them. You'll have to read about that. I haven't bothered because I can't connect with many people yet, but once I have like a good network of people, I'm not going to want to lose their keys because that would be annoying to have to wait till we collect them all. So just be aware that when you flash, you might want to save your keys. Read the Meshtastic website.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that's it for my gotchas and my know-how at this point. I think I'm fairly well exhausted.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing we would add to is obviously we want to kind of grow this whole process. So again, your help is needed in doing some of this. So as you start to add to your arsenal of Meshtastic devices, start to kind of set them up like we've already talked about, and just start communicating as much as we can. And the other piece to that is that if you're in a good location, meaning you have high elevation or you have the resources to start to build, exterior nodes that can be self-sufficient, definitely get in touch with Peter, get in touch with us. Let's have those conversations. Let's start building that all upon that, so we can share and grow with one another. Because I know there was a bunch of examples out here, but I'm sure there's a ton more that we could all learn about and be able to start building ourselves. And
I'll donate a node if anybody has a mast or a hill, and I'll bake you a cake.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. You got my goat.
I was gonna say the same thing.
My
What
nodes
was-
are completely self, they're metal box, they're lithium wrapped, and there's no fire hazard. But I'll happily donate a node to get us all connected.
We gotta get one on Ralph's roof.
Gotta get a big one.
We're working on that one.
Big honking antenna. Bigger's not necessarily better with antennas. Rockland antennas are great. They kicked all my other ones' butts. This is a Reagan, which I got on Amazon. BOA, are you here? BOA, here's your antenna. You're gonna play with this tonight. So, being new to ham, I made the mistake like they all like just buy the biggest antenna, right? That's what I have this shirt. My wife bought me a shirt that said my antenna's bigger than yours. This is okay, but remember with gain comes directionality, and it's like a laser beam. You're trying to are you gonna find that one other node on a hill? Probably not gonna be as good at 10 dB. You've got a laser beam down like 5 dB at the most if you're on the edge, but that 3 dB little stubby that comes with it. This is just the $10 one from DigiKey, which is the best, by the way. DigiKey makes a great antenna. This just is killer because it's omnidirectional. It's catching that signal from everywhere and all of the reflections that can add, line of sight that you didn't think you had. So don't necessarily jump to the giant one on your roof. And this is the other thing I've learned. You've probably learned in AM too. 2 feet can make a difference, especially with this stuff. So if you're here, try here. If you're here, try up here before you go all the way across your yard. Those literal distances. I had a little corner in my window that was perfect. Moved it 2 inches to the left and lost everything. So it can be finicky. But yeah, that's another kind of tip.
All right. Yeah. Oh, we gotta pack up and get out of here.
Thank you,
But, dude, thank you guys for everybody attending.